The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear, and the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist, but we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees, even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, and I thank you for joining me here on the Paranormal King Radio Network. Now, before I introduce my guest, I just wanted to mention that my team and I are once again receiving reports of sightings and encounters with winged humanoids, more recently in northern and central Indiana. Now, after the large number of reports in Chicago and around Lake Michigan the past 2 years, it seems that similar activity is picking up again. So we're keeping a close eye on this phenomenon and promise to report as much as possible, in particular at Families of Monsters and its Singular 14 Society website. Now, I am also going forward in writing a book concerning alien and otherworldly encounters and incidents. All of us have either stated or have heard the same questions concerning the actuality of alien beings. Who are they? What do they want? And where did they come from? There are more theories than anyone can shake a stick at. I suppose some hypotheses are more plausible than others, though most researchers tend to take a particular favored position and then discount other arguments. Now, in the past, I've attempted to be flexible when it comes to the subject of alien beings, also referred to as non-terrestrials, extraterrestrial, biological entities, ETs, etc. But my rationale began to solidify when I started to document the continuing incidents of otherworldly activity experienced by a family living in the Panhandle of Florida, and also some subsequent experience or encounters. Now, around the same period of time that I had begun working with this particular family, I also initiated a daily regime of training in order to become a capable remote viewer. Now, combined with my natural intuitive abilities, I would then soon realize a series of strange existences beyond our dimensional reality. Now, since 2008, it has become increasingly apparent to me that we are not alone as a single intelligent species that inhabits this insignificant dot on the cosmic map. But it has also become apparent that our Earth and overall humanity have attracted the attention of non-terrestrial beings over many millennia. Now, why are these alien beings so concerned with Earth and its dominant human species? The most direct answer to that question is that we have a direct connection to them. After a decade of research, investigation, and personal experience, I believe that an early interaction between Earth's inhabitants and otherworldly beings occurred approximately 15,000 years ago. I don't believe that this was the first interchange, but I do consider it to be the most influential. Now, as a result of several remote viewing sessions and 3 personal non-terrestrial encounters, including an abduction, an historical scenario was displayed to me. I witnessed a colossal disc-shaped craft descend and land in the area of the present-day Nile River Delta. Now, at that time, this location was completely encircled by the Mediterranean Sea, and the craft was later transformed into a magnificent island. This was the genesis of a great empire that encompassed the surrounding indigenous people and land. The rulers of this empire were the occupants of the craft that landed there. Their knowledge and dissemination that was disseminated throughout the region, and their bloodline was merged among the people. Now, these alien advisors communicated to me that this was the nexus of several great civilizations, in particular ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. So I asked them, was this Atlantis? There was no response to my question. I truly believe that humans are genetic extension of otherworldly races. I also believe that most of the alien entities that people encounter are biologically enhanced and evolved humans from our past and future. But we must always keep in mind they do have an agenda. I hope that my premise will become more apparent in my upcoming book. The experiences described in the accounts will be brutally forthright. Some readers may be shocked by the details, but then again, I don't believe that you would want me to present the information in any manner that isn't consistent with the experiencer's accounts. So let's get started with the show. Tonight's guest is exorcist, spiritual deliverance minister, and author Bill Bean. Bill has performed hundreds of exorcisms, spiritual deliverances worldwide, addressing anything from curses, blocks, attachments, obsession, oppression, to possession by demonic spirits. He is also a life coach, providing guidance and advice on how to be strong in mind, body, and spirit. With great sensitivity and understanding, Bill helps his clients to find solutions to a wide array of life's challenges. He works with each client to help them build on their strengths to identify and achieve life goals. His most recent book is titled Stranger Than Fiction: True Supernatural Encounters of a Spiritual Warrior. Bill's website can be found at www.billjbean.com. So, Bill, thanks for joining me.
It's great to be back with you, Lon. Thank you so much for having me. And I have to thank you right off the bat for contributing a very powerful account in my new book, Stranger Than Fiction. The reviews have been great. I praise God for that. And people have commented and remarked that they found your writing in there of the account that you wrote about to be very, very interesting.
Well, you're quite welcome. So please tell the listeners the story of Bill Bean, what you and your family endured, and how it led to your ministry.
Yeah, it's amazing, Lon. It really is. When I have moments of reflection, it's nothing short of a miracle from God. And the reason I say that is because I was once a victim, and I was devastated by demonic forces, and my family was literally destroyed by demonic forces, and I nearly was as well. Neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50, and a lot of my family members are no longer with us on this earth. And there were great times and periods of tragedies and unexplained deaths, and I have no doubt in my mind that those demonic forces contributed in some of those deaths. I have no doubt about it, especially when it comes to my parents and some other family members. And it all began, now I say I've written 5 books, and in the first book, which is called Dark Force, I say that it began in 1970 when my family and I moved into a 3-bedroom ranch-style home located in Glen Burnie, Maryland, in a community called Herondale. But it really goes much further back than that. I found out after I'd written the book from a family member who really didn't want to talk about it at the time, and then I guess through perhaps conviction and spirit or moments of reflection, he either remembered some things or decided it may be time to tell me some things, and he did. And I learned that my mother had experienced many paranormal, supernatural things in her childhood. So she certainly lived with this type of thing for most of her life. And she and her family had moved around quite a bit as well. And at one point in her teen years, she actually lived in that very area near the house that, the hell house that we had, had all the crazy stuff happen in. And furthermore, I found out that a couple of family members from many, many, many years ago, possibly many, many, many decades ago, had actually conjured up these evil spirits. So through this invocation and this ceremony that took place, and I don't even know who those family members are, I was just told that, that they did this, and I could certainly believe it, because in order for something like this to manifest in such a powerful way, there had to be some event of high wickedness that must have taken place in order for this to be able to come through, that strong. So, that said, my parents were married in 1956. My sister was born in 1957. There was another child born in 1963 and died under mysterious circumstances, a male child. And I never could get the actual account because it varied from family member to family member. But what I do know for sure is that the child didn't live for long. And when the child died, representatives of Johns Hopkins came and took the body away retrieved the body for studies. Now that part I do know for sure, and the rest I don't. I have no idea what actually took place there. But I was born in 1966, and my brother was born in 1969, and there was the first known photo of something evil and ominous and supernatural taking place was a photo that was taken of my sister and I in 1968. And I'm 2 years old, and my sister's 11, and we are seated behind a toy piano, Christmas time 1968. She is to my left, and to her far left, in the photograph, it's very clear, there is a very tall, looks to be at least 7 feet tall, black hooded entity in the photograph. So that was the first known photo of something, evil, supernatural taking place. And then the following year, 1969, at the age of 3, there was a Polaroid photograph taken of me. And in the photo, I'm standing in front of bushes. And Lon, it was as if some type of dimensional doorway opened up or something at that precise moment. And it wasn't just a 3-year-old boy standing there. There were many other types of beings in the photograph. There were humanoid-looking beings standing behind me in single file. There was what appeared to be a little gray alien-looking thing to my left. And to the left of that being or entity was what appears to be a Bigfoot Sasquatch-looking creature in the photograph. Another image was a lion that was over the top of my head, the face of a lion. And there were many other images, and some looked very demonic. You'd have to really look at the photo and study it, and you'd see many, many faces in and around me, in the bushes. Again, my best guess, and maybe only resolve to it, would be to say that at that precise moment, perhaps a dimensional doorway opened and all of these things appeared in the photograph with me. So then, I was 4 years old when we moved into the house. And the house was located at the bottom of a downhill cul-de-sac with a very large and deep ravine behind it. And my first recollections, again, I'm 4, my sister is 13. We were standing there together, and the first, she said she felt the same way. Our first thoughts were that we were frightened. The house had a very ominous look and feel about it. It was semi-dilapidated. My dad, William Bean Sr., was a master carpenter, contractor, and he was going to restore the house, which he did. He did a great deal of work to it and, took it from something that was pretty much falling apart and, made it into something that looked nice. And my mother, Patricia Bean, she was a homemaker. And, by all accounts, they were happy, and they were social drinkers they would have these parties in the beginning. Back then in that time frame, Lon, as you're aware of, families would have these gatherings, and there would be drinking involved, and so they had those types of gatherings, and they were social drinkers. But not long after moving into the house, things began to change very quickly. My mom was the first to have an experience in the home, and it was while she was in the living room unpacking and organizing. And again, my dad had taken us with him for the day to get us out from under my mother's feet, so to speak, to give her some peace so she could concentrate and focus on putting the house together. And it was during the course of this that she felt the presence come into the room, and in her mind, she thought it was my dad sneaking back in to play a joke on her, and she spun around fully anticipating on seeing him, and her shock, nothing was there. So that unnerved her, and she was, frightened and perplexed by it, and was just stunned, actually. And then it wasn't long after that she was able to go back to, shake it off and go back to doing what she was doing. And then not long after that, my sister's bedroom door slammed shut by itself. And that was enough to make her go outside and wait until we returned. So the house was equally as ominous and foreboding on the inside. It was very dark. And I've learned this, from my experiences in childhood, and now certainly as a spiritual warrior for God, that when evil forces are present, there's an atmospheric change. The air is heavy, and sometimes there are some foul odors accompanied with that. The smell of, rotting flesh or rotting meat or sulfur types of smells, things of that nature. And the house had that type of phenomena taking place, and with it being so dark, it was, there was this dark brown paneling on the walls, and it was almost black in color. So again, the house was very, very dark. It felt very heavy. And so just to walk in there would be enough to give some pause, and so you'd walk in through the front door into the living room. And if you went straight ahead, you'd go into the dining room area, and there was a small galley kitchen off to the right, facing the ravine, and the back door was right off of the dining room. And my mother, as the years went by, she would often comment, while doing dishes in the evening, she would look out that window facing the ravine, and she would see these blue lights descending down into the ravine. She talked about this on several occasions over the years. And so, and we'll get back to that in a second, but you would make a right and go down this long hallway, and the hallway had a hard tile flooring. And my brother and I shared the first room on the right. My parents' room was the second room on the right, and my sister's room was the last room on the left, on the other side of the hallway. And that is the room, Lon, that I feel was the main portal in the house. And that room, even on the hottest of summer days, was cold, and that's also the room where the door would open and slam for many repetitions at a time. So after my mother's initial encounter, these occurrences began to happen more and more and escalate more and more. And then it would be, there were times that my mother would make the beds in the morning. We would go off to school, my dad would be going off to work. And then she would go back, not long after, to discover all the beds torn apart, the bedclothes just torn off the beds. And water faucets would turn on with such pressure coming out of it in the bathroom and in the kitchen. There'd be such pressure coming out of them that it would literally saturate, the areas around the kitchen and bathroom sinks. And then they started to see apparitions of different types of entities. So all of this gradually escalated into violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities. And again, it greatly contributed to the destruction of my family. And I find that, with the new book that I've written, I feel that I was able to connect the dots and connect all this phenomena. It is all, and I've had many, many experiences, from those horrific times as a child and being physically attacked by demonic forces into, teen years and adult years, and having all these different types of experiences, whether it was UFO experiences or whatever, you name the phenomena, I've pretty much had it or witnessed it. And so my conclusion is, based on that, and then based on my work now in helping others, it is all very much connected. So I'm thankful to God for putting the idea on my mind and in my spirit to even write the book, Stranger Than Fiction, and have the ability, which I hope, it's so far based on the reviews, again, I'm very thankful and grateful that I feel that I have achieved something in connecting the dots and stimulating thoughts with others now and saying, wow, okay, this makes sense to me, and I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, you and I both connect with angels, and in particular, guardian
Mm-hmm.
angels. And in
Praise God
fact,
for that.
you attribute them to several divine interventions in your
Mm-hmm.
life. Can you kind of
Yes.
explain a few of those?
Oh boy, I've been in so many life-threatening situations over the years, and I'll tell you, Lana, honestly, I feel that God had a purpose for me before I came into this world, and the devil knew this, and I feel that he was going to try and stop that by killing me. And I have been in so many different life-threatening situations during the course of my life. I mean, I've disarmed a gunman who fired the gun twice, disarmed a guy with a knife that tried to slice my face and then stabbed me in the femoral artery, and I've had guns pulled on me more than once. And I fell one time 50 feet from a salt dome from the state of Maryland. I was working construction then, and I fell 50 feet. And I know people that fell 15 feet and were just devastated and died or were crippled. God has intervened on my behalf so many times, and I do believe the reason for it is where I'm at right now, with him working through me in helping others to become free from evil. So each and every time that the devil tried to take my life, I feel that God was right there to save me and to spare me and to keep all harm from me, and I'm forever grateful. And I didn't come on your show to preach a sermon, but I did come on here to speak the truth,
Yeah.
and that's the truth. So when people hear me say praise God and all these things, I'm sincere. I'm not some phony, smiley-faced preacher that's, on one of these channels barking for money. I'm just telling you the truth and how God works through me and the miracles that God has worked for me and in my life and has worked through me to, in some miraculous ways as well.
Well, you and I have known each other long enough to know what's going on for the most part, and
Yes,
we understand each other and understand how we do what we do and when we help people. And
absolutely.
you know, I know these angels have become a big part of your life, but how have you utilized them when you're working?
Well, what I do is first thing I do is when I'm going to a residence or a business, even a church. I mean, there have been pastors that have brought me into their churches in different parts of the country to perform, spiritual warfare for them and their families, congregations, and the churches. Whatever it may be and wherever it may be, the first thing that I do is when I arrive at a location, I say a land blessing, and I ask God, Yahweh, to send his giant warrior angels to come and take into custody any demons that are present in, on, or around the land, the home, the family, pets if they have pets. And I ask God to have his angels take those demons into custody and carry them off and deposit them back into the pits of hell where they belong. So that's the first thing I do. And I ask God to please bless, heal, and forgive and cleanse any wickedness or bloodshed or iniquities or anything that had taken place on the land in the history of the land. I ask that God, will bless, seal, sanctify, purify, cleanse, and make that land holy. So then once that's taken care of, I'll advance in the home, and I will anoint everyone's head with a combination of holy water, holy oil, and holy salt. And then I will say several prayers at the front door, including a house blessing prayer. And then we have to sit down, and I become a counselor at that point. And it's not that I want to know people's deep and dark secrets, but I have to in order for people to truly be free from whatever the devil is holding over them, because the devil operates in legalities. And if he feels he has a legal right to be in somebody's life, well, he'll take that to God. And God will allow that because of free will.
Mm.
So we sit down and I have to become a counselor, and people are telling me the worst of the worst, in their life, the history of their life. And with each account that they give, it is getting this stuff up and out and off and breaking the legal rights. And I'll tell you, Lon, sometimes, it could vary. The conversation and discussions could go anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours, 7 hours. I have sat down with people at that type of length for 7 hours and just having them telling me everything. And I'll tell you, my next step after that, once everything's up and out and off, then I can engage these demonic forces in spiritual warfare, God working through me. It's not me. It's not my power, and I don't claim that it is. It is the power of God working through me to help these people, and I'm thankful to God for that. And once that takes place, I can engage them in spiritual warfare, binding and rebuking and casting them out by the mighty power of Yahweh in Jesus' name. And then the real transformation can start to take place. And many times also, I will baptize the client or clients, victim or victims. That you never know. I mean, there's been times that I've gone and helped 5, 6, 7, 8 people, 10 people at a time. And let me tell you, when this is over with, and there have been times that I've been in a person's house all night, and when these things end, and when God finally comes and works through me and brings his angels to take all this garbage out, after it's over, I'm totally exhausted. There's nothing left. And so, again, that's where the regeneration process starts up, to where I can't even think straight after everything's over with. I just need to go down and sit down in a quiet place somewhere and just try and collect myself, and then God starts the regeneration process of bringing me back. But there is nothing left after it's over.
Now, demons are generally regarded as many different types of spirits. How and why do they manifest in people's lives?
Well, I believe, and again, this is strictly theory and conjecture on my part. I can't point this out as absolute proof, but this is what I believe. I believe that when Yahweh created everything, he also created the devil, Hasatan, Satan, the adversary to mankind. And at one point, the devil was the choir director in heaven. He was in charge of the praise and worship music for God. And I believe that God created him first, and he was the only gig in town, and he was adorned with jewels and pipes, and he was a beautiful creature. And I think, the heavenly host regarded him very highly. And then when Yahweh created Yeshua, the Melchizedek, the Christ, the anointed one, and for whatever reasons, we'd have to ask God this, because I don't know, but he created this other being that was going to be the Savior, the Messiah for mankind. And then perhaps God knew all along that the first creation, Hasatan, the devil, would rebel, at the creation of Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. And so perhaps it was part of the plan, due to man's free will, to have this adversary to mankind, that he would rebel, and then God would send them out and cast them out down to the earth, Satan and a third of the angels. And I tell you, Lon, I believe they were cast out in UFOs, in those flying craft. And I think they came down here to earth and took human women and had sex with them and produced a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. And I think that the Nephilim went into the forest and the fields and had unnatural sex acts with apes and bears and other things, creating a hybrid offspring there, an offspring of the offspring, which are the Bigfoot Sasquatch creatures. And this is deep stuff. And look, I don't claim to know it all, but this is what I strongly believe. And I believe that that these beings, when they came down, they certainly had bad intentions, and it was part of the rebellion and part of the devil assuming that role as the adversary to mankind, which I very much believe that he hates mankind and will do anything to cause pain and suffering and destruction, on mankind. And so if, in fact, what I'm saying is true, then these Nephilim creatures, I feel that's why God created the Great Flood. But I also think that some of them escaped. When the Great Flood came, if in fact they did have those types of craft, then they were able to get into those craft and escape the planet and go to places like Mars, where you see the Sphinx-like face there and pyramids and all these different things. It's absolutely possible. It's certainly nowadays, pretty much anything that we can imagine is true or will come true. So I really believe that if in fact these entities were cast down and they did come down in those flying craft, then there would have been nothing to stop them from getting in those flying craft and then going to whether it be Mars or some other place until those floodwaters receded and then came back. And another interesting thing that, again, some of these things I'm saying, if I were saying this in a lot of churches, they would call the police on me to get me out of there. But I'm sorry, I'd rather have the truth than what's being taught, because I feel that a lot of the church leaders are failing the congregations because they're not teaching the whole truth. They're giving cookie-cutter versions of, and so it's a disservice to God and it's a disservice to mankind. So I feel that this really goes back again to when God started everything with mankind. So this event really goes back, I guess, to Adam and Eve in the garden, and I feel that the fruit, the forbidden fruit, I think, was sexual union with the devil. And I think that's what happened. And I think that the first offspring of the devil was Cain. And I think the offspring of Adam was Abel, but Cain slew his brother Abel because of what God said in Genesis 3, verses 13 through 15. God said, he calls them all together after the act has taken place, and he says, because you've done this, he's talking to the devil, he says, because you've done this, I will create enmity, which means hatred, between you and the woman, and I will create enmity, hatred, between your seed and the woman's seed. So if, in fact, what I'm saying is true, that Cain was the first seed of the devil, that would explain why he slew his brother Abel, and then went on from there. But I feel that satanic seed line has been on this planet, ever since the beginning of mankind, and continues to this day.
Well, I will say to you that I do believe there is a connection to non-terrestrial or alien beings and angels. I really do believe that. Now, in what degree, I'm not really sure, and I don't really think anybody is sure. Like you said before, it's all conjecture and speculation. But, when you mention free will, that's something when we work with clients, it's kind of hard to get them to understand. Because when you talk about free will and you're trying to remove a spirit, even a non-malevolent spirit, but even malevolent spirits, they've all got free will. And if they don't want to leave, they aren't going anywhere.
Correct.
And I guess that's the same as that goes with demons, or which some people consider as demons, that they've also got free will, and not in every case are they going to leave.
Well, this is where my job, God working through me as a spiritual warrior, I have to totally rely on Him, Lon. I have to have total faith, so I'm in what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage. And look, these are all cute words and all this kind of stuff, but you got to really live it. If you're doing this kind of work, I have to live this, and I have to be somebody to somebody every day of my life. And so I have to operate in this warrior mode 24/7. And I always believe, by the power of God working through me, by the mighty power of Yahweh in Jesus' name, that these things will leave, and they have to leave. Now, that said, and they do leave, but it does not mean that they stay gone, because after that's over with, then I have to sit down as a life coach to say, okay, let's put a game plan together for your life moving forward, and you must eliminate certain things that you're doing to open the door for these entities to come back. Because if you continue doing certain things, that door is going to swing wide open. The devil's going to kick it in, and 7 more wicked than the original are going to come back, and you're going to be, 7 times worse than you were.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it's easier said than done, because people get into patterns. We all have this mind conditioning, and we get into these patterns, and so it's very difficult to break out of them. And sometimes, even if a person knows that they shouldn't do that, and if they do that, there's going to be a bad consequence, they will still do it because it's the familiar place. Even though that's the bad place, and that's the place that can lead to disaster, they will still do it because it's the familiar place. So it's easier for them to go to the familiar place than to take the giant step forward into the unknown. And that's where faith, strength, and courage come in. And, some people that have helped, they move on, and they go on to have a great rest of their life, peaceful and free from any of that garbage. And then others I've gone back to 3, 4, 5 times because, something happens to where that doorway opens again, and then these demonic forces come back.
Yeah, I mean, this type of work, there's always got to be some aftercare, and you've got to really teach people to not get themselves back in trouble again. I completely understand that. I mean, this is something. Well, you're familiar with a couple of my clients out in Iowa who I've been dealing with for 6 or 7 years now, and you work with them as well. And these, it's always a struggle. It's a daily struggle for people.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
It is, and it just happened. And it could be the most benign thing that could open a door up and let things back in again.
And then once it's back, oh boy, is it
it's
ever
worse.
back? And then exactly, and then it just amplifies and magnifies into something gigantically horrible. And but again, I let people know that even though I'm busy, and I'm always busy, but I'm never too busy to help somebody. And there are people that either call me often or they'll message me, whether it's email or text or whatever. And, they'll ask for advice, or they'll ask for prayers, or they'll tell me that, something has come back into their life again. And then, a lot of times I'll end up going back to them and helping them. So it is, it's a daunting task, that's for sure. But there's nothing that I'd rather be doing with my life and in my life than helping people to move forward. And Lon, we all life operates on frequency and vibration. And so if we are on high frequency, high vibration, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. Doesn't mean life is perfect, because no one has a perfect life.
There's a great deal of
challenges in life.
It's a great deal of satisfaction when you help people like that.
Yeah.
I know the feeling like when you put everything into it and you just feel like you're going to collapse and just never wake up again. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of pain involved sometimes too, because spiritual attacks are not anything to be taken lightly, and they do happen.
No question about it.
I've been beat up plenty of times, and I've got the scars to prove it. So I know what it's like. I've been
in many life-threatening situations since I became a minister, since I became a spiritual warrior. I have, and again, I thank God and praise God for protecting me, but I've had people come to me and say, I want to shoot you, I want to stab you, and one lady handed me her gun and things of that nature. So I've been in some really hairy situations like that. Each and every time, God has been there, and God has kept me in His protection, and I thank Him for it.
Now, you had quite a variety of UFO encounters and sightings over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really I know you have had them, but until I started looking at this last book, I really didn't realize the amount. And you describe them as divine encounters. Can you kind of talk about a few of those?
Yeah, and I have had so many different things happen in my life in a supernatural way. It's mind-boggling. You know, a lot of people say, how in the world can this one guy have all these different things happen? But I assure you, it's all true. And I guess the first, I'll talk about the first UFO sighting, and then I'll talk about, you know, how it became commonplace after that. But the first UFO sighting took place in 1977 over that house, you know, over the ravine, probably 40 yards from the back door of that house in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And it was a brilliant white craft. It was silently hovering there over a utility pole, very low in the sky. And you would just see it every once in a while making this swaying motion, just like a wobble almost, you know, at times. And the power went out in our house and other houses in the area. And this thing hovered out there for probably an hour, or close to an hour. And then it started to just ascend slowly. And as it was ascending, it started to head off just very slowly, started heading off to the north. And as it was heading off, you know, all the power came back on in everybody's homes. So that was the first time. And I never forgot it. And I could see it right now in my mind just as I saw it back then. And it wasn't until 1995, January of 1995, that these frequent sightings began to take place. And I have no explanation for it other than I guess it was the right time for God to present these things to me in some way. And so in January 1995, I was in the bar business, and I was working nights at this bar in Glen Burnie, Maryland, which was probably, I was living in Baltimore County at the time. So it was probably a 35-minute drive, something like that. And I started seeing this red light. It was like red-orange, and I thought it was a helicopter. And I thought, okay, what in the world's going on here? Is this a case of mistaken identity? You know, because this thing was sticking with me. It was pacing my car going down the road, and I would have to go down a beltway, Interstate 695, to get to this establishment that I was working at. And I started thinking, okay, is this a case of mistaken identity, and I'm under police surveillance? What's going on here? And so it was very unnerving, very perplexing, to say the least. And it went on for a couple of weeks, and I told my wife about it. And it's hard to believe when you tell somebody something like that until they see it for themselves. And then she did start to see it for herself, and that changed everything and gave me a feeling of, reassurance that I wasn't losing my mind. And it just escalated from there on. I've had so many different sightings. It was on a daily basis for such a long time, and it got to the point to where I could go out in my backyard with a tripod and put a camcorder, the big old camcorders back then, and put that on mount that on the tripod. And within minutes of doing that, these objects would show up. And there were times that I felt very much threatened. I felt that there were sinister demonic forces in some of those craft, and I did not feel safe at all. And there were other times that I felt that God and his forces were there, and they were protecting me. At times I felt like I was being escorted from something really bad. And I can remember one day, it was a beautiful day, I think it was in 1999, not a cloud in the sky. And I started the recording on the camcorder. Now, I was not in the shot, but I was standing behind it. And you could hear my voice on there saying, "Praise God for such a beautiful day." And right after I said this, and I did not see it. That's the amazing thing. I didn't even know this happened until I looked at the playback. So when I said it in real time, I didn't see anything. Yet when I went back to the playback, right after I said, "Praise God for such a beautiful day," this white object comes in, and it was coming in, I guess, from the northwest, and it was banking. And it came right into the center frame of the shot, right in front. I should have saw it, Lon. It was right in my vision line. I don't. That in itself was supernatural that I did not see it, but yet when I played it back on the video, it was right there, right in front of me, for several seconds, and then it started dissipating and moving away to the north, and it broke up into 5 white balls, and then they headed off and then disappeared. So that was amazing. That and then another time, I would have to say probably. I wrote about it in the book, and I can't remember the exact date, but I want to say somewhere around in that time period, 99, 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. It was a summer morning, and I was feeding bread to the birds over my fence there, and where my wife and I were living in Baltimore County.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm throwing bread to the birds, and all of a sudden, this chrome, silver-looking, just imagine a halo, in some of those depictions of the paintings and stuff like that. It came down out of the sky, and it hovered just probably 10 feet off the ground or less. I mean, it was very, very low, and then it went right back up. So I took that as some kind of message from God that he was pleased that I was feeding the birds and appreciating his life, his other life that he created. And it was such an amazing experience. So yes, I've had many divine experiences in that way with unidentified flying objects. And, if you go into the Bible, just look at Psalm 68:17. It says the chariots of God are 20,000. So I firmly believe that, and there are many scriptures mentioning in the Bible that mention UFOs as clouds, pillars of a cloud, flying tabernacles, flying scrolls and rolls, and all these different types of things. It's very prominently mentioned in the Bible many times. What do you think that the Israelites were? It was the UFO was over them, giving shade by day and fire by night, the light by night, and feeding them manna, bread out of the object. People don't understand this. So I very much believe, and why does our God use these types of craft? I don't know. We'd have to ask him. He's the creator of everything. He can do whatever he wants to do. But I firmly believe that he does and has his heavenly host use them, and that's why I feel that Satan and his kind are using them as well. And then our governments on the earth have, certainly gotten this technology, and whether it's through treaties with fallen angels or whatever it is, they have their hands on this technology. And furthermore, I do believe that Yahweh created life elsewhere out in the universe, and they are probably very much like us in the sense that, they're either good or evil. And so we have a lot of factors in this, but I certainly believe all of them are possible, valid, and real. And I've had just so many different types of experiences with UFO-related phenomena. I have 2 experiences, and I know we're getting short on time, where I pointed out to the person. One was a UFO investigator from MUFON, Alexander Zekas, that came from Virginia to interview me. This was year 2000. And again, this was in July, very hot day, but it was not a cloud in the sky. And I said to him, "You see that area of the sky right there?" And he says, "Yeah." And it was blank, Ron. There was nothing there. I said, "I just feel that there's an object there that is cloaked." And he said, "I don't see anything." I said, I'll take pictures with my camera and you take pictures with your camera, and let's see what we get. And we stood side by side with our own cameras and took the photographs, and sure enough, our photos revealed a disc, a silver disc, sitting right where I pointed into the sky. You could not see it, but I knew it was there. And he wrote about that in his book, Synchronistic Adventures. And then another time in 2008, I was making an appearance in Mentone, Alabama, on this mountaintop. Beautiful place. It was another beautiful day. And Bob was with me, Bob Sigmund. He travels with me as a road manager and helps me with preparation for when I make these appearances. And he was there, and I did the same thing. I said, "You see that area of the sky right there?" He said, "I don't see anything." I said, "I'm telling you, something's there." And he didn't believe it. And he said, well, why don't you go over and stand there, in that area where you think something's there, and I'll take the picture. I said, okay. I stood there, and sure enough, Lon, this white object was right over top of me in the sky, right where I told him that it was. You could not see it, again with the naked eye, but yet when he took the picture, it was right there.
Interesting. I told you this a while back. I was very aware of your encounters and such in Herondale pretty early. I knew about what was going on, and it was interesting. I don't know what year it was, but my wife and I were in that neighborhood. I think we were probably at the Herondale Mall at the time, and we stopped by, where you lived at in the cul-de-sac. And it's interesting. I've never had a UFO experience, and I still don't think I have. But we did see something above the house, above that area, that looked like a bright light. It was during the day. I wouldn't really say it was a craft, but I don't know what it was. But it was a very
I can
bright.
believe it.
It was very bright. I don't know what it was, and I never really could explain what it was. And I told you this also. When I went into the area where the house is, or the house was at the time, I always had a strange feeling coming near there.
Yeah, you can feel it.
You can sense it. You really can sense it.
No question about it.
It's very hard to understand. It's not like a lot of other energy that I have sensed, but you could definitely sense it. And it's a type of vibration you feel when you get closer to it.
I totally agree, 100%. And, I never, hardly ever have to pass by there or go by the area, but if you're going down Ritchie Highway, and there are times once in a great while that I'll be going, on Ritchie Highway if I'm coming back from a trip somewhere or whatever, and I'm going Ritchie Highway south, and I will glance down there. First of all, before I even get there, I can feel, and I'm binding and rebuking and casting out the demons when I go into the area. And then when I get to where I can look down, that house always looks the same and feels the same to me. Again, over all these years, whenever I pass by there, I just get the same feeling.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You and I didn't live that far from each other at the time, so like I said, I became aware of when your book came out and everything, and it really interested me. But yeah, you're right. There's definitely something there.
Yeah,
I have no doubt about that.
Gigantic portals there, Lon, and the next time I come back, maybe we could talk about that. But I think there really are some gigantic portals in that area that, and especially now, with the technology that's available, which I believe is fallen angel technology through the CERN device and all these types of things are Stargate that can open these portals even greater. I feel that areas like that, which already had these portals, will now become even worse because I think the portals will expand even further now due to that device.
Well, I tell you, I've been investigating. Me and my team have been investigating these winged humanoid sightings out in Chicago.
Yeah.
And Chicago.
And I'm going to be headed there next Wednesday. I'm flying to Denver in the morning, and then I'm going to Chicago next Wednesday. And believe me, I'll be having my eyes open.
This is one of the things that we have been investigating and theorizing on, that portals are being opened up somehow, and that these beings are somehow getting out into our dimension from another dimension or reality. And it's kind of, our theory has kind of been reinforced because we have had 2 instances that I know of where people have actually seen these things disappear. Like it went through.
I don't doubt that for a second.
Through a portal. Yeah. And, I know you wrote about the CERN implications and the Mandela effect as well in this book.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting book. There's a lot of different things in there for everybody. You've got a lot in there from other people who experienced all kinds of odd anomalies. I guess that's the best way of saying it. But there's a lot of interesting things in your book.
And I thank you for that, brother. I tell you, I'm so glad that you were part of it, because you just added to the interest. And, again, I've gotten I have, and praise God for this. I shouldn't say this, but I will. There has not been one negative review about that book, and people are really enjoying it and finding it interesting. And every, whether they're reading about you or Mike Super, Travis Short, or Kev Baker, or any of these people that contributed stories to the book, I mean, they're finding it all very interesting, and they too are seeing the patterns to where they can understand how I'm able to connect the dots in this.
Yeah, well, that's the best storytelling is when people talk about their own experiences, and it's more believable. It really hits people harder and kind of opens people's eyes up. I think nowadays people do have a more open mind when it comes to the paranormal and even to spirituality. And I'm not really saying that the internet is the best thing for that, but I think it has helped somewhat in helping people to understand that there's a lot more to this world than just us.
I totally agree.
Now,
and I think, Lon,
go ahead.
I tell you, I think that, and we'll have to talk about this the next time, I think there's also an agenda that's taking place in our world.
Oh, yeah.
That perhaps there are those, and they know who they are, in the high places that have sold out to, whether they are, which I feel they're part of Satan's kingdom, these reptilians, and, that's a whole other show. But, boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot to be said about that.
Well, I've learned a lot over the years. There's a lot of things I wasn't really open to, but I have become more open to, and I've become more flexible in trying to understand. And yeah, there is an agenda. I mean, some people think it's quaint to have these otherworldly beings coming into their lives and such, but there may be a good part to it, but there's a lot of bad involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have a lot of content again. Hopefully you'll have me back in the future. When I come back, we'll certainly be able to pick up where we left off and have a lot to talk about. Still, we'll just scratch the surface in this.
Well, this thing in Chicago and in the surrounding states is picking up again, and we've gotten a lot of sightings lately. So I don't know. I may be writing another book about that. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see.
I will have my eyes peeled on Wednesday when I go into the Chicago area. I will, I'm going there to help a family that's having problems, and I've been to them before, and they're having problems again. And It's interesting. I feel that there are some portals there, and I feel that they're over the house and certainly in the house as well. But I wouldn't be surprised. And again, I have not seen this, and I've had a lot of travels to Chicago over the last several years, and I haven't seen anything like that. It wouldn't surprise me a bit that if I wouldn't see something like that and in proximity to this house to where I'm going.
Well, keep me updated on that. Can you tell people how they can get a hold of you and how they can get your books?
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. The time went by like a blink, and I look forward to the next time, and thank everybody out there for listening in and watching. And for anyone out there, if you're having your spiritual issues and you are in need, then don't hesitate to contact me at BillJBean.com. You can contact me directly from the website, and I'll get back to you, or my assistant Melinda will get back to you as soon as possible. And for those, again, that would like to get a copy of Stranger Than Fiction or the other books, same thing. Visit BillJBean.com, and you can order them from there, and I'll personally sign them to you. And again, if I can be of any assistance in any way, don't hesitate.
Okay, well, Bill, thanks for being on the show. It's been a long time since we talked, but hopefully we'll be talking sooner.
I certainly hope so, and I've enjoyed it. And God bless you, brother, and keep in touch. And I will be in touch with you next week and let you know that, if in fact I did see anything resembling that Mothman type of creature in the Chicago area.
Sounds good. You take care.
All right, brother. You too. Bye-bye.
Listeners can show their support for Arcane Radio by becoming a patron. Simply go to phantomsandmonsters.com and click the Podbean patron banner. Arcane Radio also accepts direct donations. If you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. I want to again thank Bill Bean for joining me this evening, and I want to thank you for listening to the show. Good night and have a great weekend.